Hi, this is Jeff from INTJ Equation with my second podcast, and my guest today is Sarah. Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm an ENTP from Canada.
Um, yeah, so today we're going to talk a little about her as an ENTP and kind of her experiences through life. And also, she had some INTJ relationships in the past where they had avoidant personality disorder, which is an interest of mine and something I really want to study, but they're quite the reclusive bunch. I should know because I have avoidant personality disorder myself, but I'm slowly overcoming it. So I definitely want to try to just study this and figure it out because I have a concept of which I'll discuss more. I could put a blog post in the description if you want to learn more about avoidant personality disorder, but I do think it's just kind of like the cognitive functions go array, and it's like a spectrum, like from like healthy to unhealthy. And I think they just go to the point where they're so unhealthy. And I think there's a way that we could find a way to treat that. But anyways, that's a whole other episode, I guess. So Sarah, you're an ENTP, and do you want to discuss a little bit about the INTJ relationship you had? I know you don't want to go into too many
Sure.
details.
Yeah, so I think for the people with avoidant personality disorder, INTJs, who I've known, one of like my experience with relationships with them started before I was as aware as I am now of the personality types or of avoidant personality disorder. So from the beginning, when in my earlier relationships, it was very confusing to me, their behavior, because it was very it's kind of like very push and pull, like as soon as you got closer they pull away, and it left me kind of wondering, like, do they like me, don't they like me, like why are they doing this, like, I was kind of confused, and it produced like a bit of anxiety. Like, I'm not an anxious person generally, but it produced a bit of relationship anxiety with me because I was constantly kind of wondering what the status of the relationship was and whether or not they were actually like how interested they were, if that makes
And
sense.
like the mysterious side to them, right?
Yeah.
Like they were hiding something, you didn't know the full picture. I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Greene and his books, but INTJs are often known as like coquettes, where they kind of play it sly, but they kind of naturally do it because they're so reclusive and they just don't give away all the details and kind of makes people wonder and kind of makes them seductive in their own sense in that manner, I guess.
Yeah, which is probably like part of the attraction, like why I ended up dating so many INTJs. Well, not like so many, but a few. Anyways, but they we got along, like in conversations, like we'd have great conversations. Probably has to do with like the introverted and extroverted intuition, and then introverted and extroverted thinking, like in our stacks, the combination makes it really easy to have like great deep theoretical discussions, which I find it is hard to find people who are interested in having those kinds of conversations and enjoy it. Like, a lot of people, like the majority of people are like the ST or SF personality types, or even like NF, and they're not quite as interested in the same types of discussions or topics.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that part of the ENTP INTJ, plus then the kind of, yeah, they were a bit mysterious and left me wondering, which attracted me to the relationship because I was trying to figure it out too, as part of like partly like a challenge for me to figure out what was happening, which made it interesting. And yeah, so through my life relationships with INTJs, I think it was quite like emotionally stressful for me, especially when I was young, because I didn't really know what was going on. And when I was younger, I used to think it was because of me. Like I didn't have quite as much perspective of the way people treat you and the way they behave is because of who they are and their issues. So when I was younger and they would treat me that way, I was trying to figure out what I was doing, or is it something to do with me? Like, do they not like me that much? You know what I mean? And now that I'm older, there is still a certain amount of wandering and stress, but I have more knowledge of myself and of other people and other people's behaviors to be able to understand that they're acting that way because of their own issues and who they are, and not, it doesn't really necessarily have anything to do with me, right?
Yeah.
And just because they are avoidant doesn't mean that they aren't interested and don't like you, because a lot of the time they'll actually, as the relationship gets closer, they'll be more avoidant because that's what actually is terrifying to them. So
Yeah, I think it kind of goes both ways. They can be really anxious too. There's anxious attachment styles, and there's avoidant. I know, like in past relationships, I actually got pretty anxious because I was just so afraid that they were going to leave me, because INTJs and other SE users have a real fear of like abandonment. They really want someone to be loyal to them. And when you're an INTJ and you have avoidant personality disorder, AvPD, it's kind of like a double whammy. You're kind of like self-isolated and quite different. How would you say, have you been in relationships with INTJs without avoidant personality disorder, and how did it differ from being in a relationship with somebody with avoidant personality disorder?
mm, I so the INTJ that I was in a relationship with, who I am sure he has avoidant personality disorder, because he like, it's like textbook the things he did, but he does not think, I've talked to him, I still talk to him sometimes, and first I brought up to him just the avoidant attachment style, and he was like, no, I've talked about that, I don't have it. I was like, yeah, okay. And he and then I saw like the avoidant personality disorder stuff, and I was like, he is beyond avoidant attachment, because I think there's a lot of people who have an avoidant attachment style that aren't to the extent of having avoidant personality disorder. But he was definitely to the extreme of having avoidant personality disorder. Um, but the thing is, I think it's hard for people with avoidant personality disorder to even be diagnosed or admit that they have it, um, because just admitting that they have it would be such a huge impact to their self-esteem, I think, which is already fragile. Like, to be actually diagnosed with something would be just very difficult to accept, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, what kind of clues gave you that he did have ABPD?
So I didn't think that when I didn't even know what it was when we were together, but now looking back at it, I'm like, yeah. So he did, like, if I read the description, he's very self-conscious, like physically about his body. Like he would like put towels over himself if we were at the pool, like to cover his body, and like he when we were walking, he would like walk ahead of me instead of walking beside me. He would like make a purpose to kind of like lead me, and that was actually one of the things I read in relationships with avoidant personality disorders, that they'll do that. um and he would like he would do things like like we'd be texting more and getting closer and like sending a heart emoji, and then all of a sudden he would be like, say something like, just because I send a heart emoji doesn't mean that I love you, or doesn't mean that we're like serious, or you know what I mean? So as like the relationship would be progressing, and then he all of a sudden he would like pull back, like he would get scared and like pull, you know what I mean? So like and yeah, like I was saying before, when we were starting to see each other, we were hanging out almost every day. And then we officially started like being a couple, like together. And he immediately, like as soon as we were officially a couple, started like just not inviting me to things that he would have invited me to before, like if that makes sense. So it was like generally in relationships, when people get closer, like if you start officially dating, you'll actually see each other more, spend more time with each other. But with him, it was like he wanted to get closer, and then he would, but then as soon as it was closer, he would pull back. So and he still is, he still has the same issues, and I don't think he's really done a lot of work to sort it out, mostly because I think he's like afraid of having any sort of diagnosis at all. So I don't think he's even really in a place where he could accept that there was like an official diagnosis for it, and it's not.
Yeah, since we're on the topic of diagnoses, I want to kind of share the screen real quick. Hopefully this works.
Okay.
Yeah, just real quick, just kind of like the criteria of meeting it. So the criteria in the DSM-5, and you have to meet 4 of at least the 7, avoids occupational activities involving significant interpersonal contact due to fears of criticism, can't read today. Disapproval or rejection, is unwilling to get involved with people unless certain of acceptance, shows restraint within intimate relationships due to fears of shame or ridicule, preoccupied with fears of receiving criticism or rejection in social situations, inhibited in new interpersonal situations due to feelings of inadequacy, considers self as inferior to others, socially inept, or personally unappealing, is usually reluctant to take personal risk or engage in any new activities because they may prove embarrassing.
Yeah.
So kind of like a lot of that. I think a lot of that is like goes hand in hand with INTJs and kind of with Avoidant Personality Disorder. That's why I really don't agree with the DSM-5 in that respect for sure. Have you dated anybody else with Avoidant Personality Disorder that wasn't an INTJ? Because I don't think this is an exclusive INTJ thing, of course.
I haven't dated anyone else. However, my twin brother is an INTP, and I don't know if he actually has avoidant personality disorder. I don't know if it's quite that extreme, but he definitely had a lot of the characteristics, especially when it came to like romantic relationships, of fear of rejection. Like he was very afraid. You know how like lots of young guys in their 20s are out hitting on girls and all the time, and he was like, he would go out with his buddies and stuff, but he would not hit on girls or ask girls out, like, and I think there were girls that would try to flirt with him sometimes, and a lot of the time he wasn't even like aware that they were trying to flirt with him, or he would just not like them and reject them. But yeah, it took him a while to have a serious relationship because of that, though. Like he definitely was not into like just dating people because he was afraid of the rejection, I think was a huge thing. And he also had some of the same characteristics. Like I've noticed with INTJs, they tend to say like really hurtful things without being aware that they're hurtful.
For sure.
And I think that's partly what could lead to avoidant personality disorder developing, because like from an INTJ's perspective, if you're saying hurtful things, then the reaction that you get from other people is going to be negative, right? But if you don't know you said something hurtful, then all of a sudden like other people are just mad at you and you have no idea why, or like how what you said led to their reaction. So which I think like a lot of INTPs and INTJs I know call other people crazy, and especially women. And I think that it's because of that like upsetness and reaction that you're getting, and you don't know what you said to cause it. So if you don't know how what you said was hurtful, and then you just get people reacting at you who are hurt, right? Then first of all, like it would make social interactions uncomfortable. Like if you don't know when it's going to happen or why, it would, I think, probably make INTJs and INTPs hesitant to have social interactions, because it would be very unpredictable for you. And then also it's harmful to relationships if the people you're talking to don't understand that you didn't mean to be hurtful.
Yeah, I think you kind of are definitely in the ballpark there for sure. Like INTJs, I don't know if you're familiar with like the cognitive functions as much or how they go far in depth, but down in our shadow, we have everybody has a trickster function, and INTJs have FE trickster, which is extroverted feeling.
Yeah.
So we don't pick up on the emotions of other people. We don't pick up like on social norms and things like that. So when we're talking, we're very blunt and direct, and we offend people, and we have no clue that we're offending people. And that, of course, is going to alienate people. So, with our SE inferior, we're kind of bad about giving people like a bad experience. So we kind of just, we just shut down pretty much.
Yeah.
And INTPs are a little bit different. They're insecure about making people feel bad because they have FE inferior, but they also have SE trickster, extroverted sensing trickster, where they're not really aware of the physical environment. They kind of live in la la land more or less with their extroverted intuition parent. So they're kind of not really physically there. They're kind of mentally, kind of like with INTJs, we kind of zone out with their NI heroes or extroverted intuition. So I think it's kind of a similar process with INTPs. Definitely would like to get in an INTP's head more, who's more knowledgeable about this stuff and talk about it. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely probably after INTJ is the most socially awkward after us. Maybe INFPs are definitely up there as well.
I think they probably care a bit less though. Like my brother he was scared of rejection from people he liked, but he also has this thing where he doesn't really care if he upsets people. Like he'll say things like an INTJ, but he actually, if people are upset, he's like, whatever, that's their problem. Whereas an INTJ is probably actually more likely to, they probably won't show that they care, but actually will care and feel badly about it and beat themselves up about it internally more, I think.
Yeah, I think that's definitely due to like, you feel bad with your introverted feeling as an INTJ, you would feel quite bad about upsetting people. Then you're giving people a bad experience. So INTPs, on the other hand, they don't really care much about how they feel. How they feel is like kind of stupid to them, but they're really insecure about making other people feel bad, and they can be very, very apathetic. INTJs can be apathetic, but INTPs are probably the most apathetic. They just get like, if you piss them off, they just don't care.
Yeah.
Like, whatever, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. And I actually kind of envy my brother for that sometimes, because I wish I could not care as much as he seems to, but I'm an ENTP, so I do.
What makes you care exactly about people? Like, what is your process of like caring for people? ENTPs are also known to kind of be kind of cold.
Yeah, so I could say things that are insensitive, but it's not on purpose. Like, and if I find out that someone was hurt by something that I said, I do care a lot about that. Like, I would feel really bad and apologize or try to make it right with them. But that depends too. Like, so for me, my extroverted feeling is third after introverted thinking. So I do care a lot about other people and how they feel, but only if it's reasonable to care.
Yeah.
So I'll go through this process where especially like when I was younger, I was probably more insensitive, but now I'll go through a process where I've actually determined that there's certain situations where the way that people feel is logically important. Like certain relationships, if it's an important relationship, then I'll go through this process where I'm like, it's actually, even if what they're saying is completely illogical, even if I know they're completely wrong, the relationship is important enough that I'll place their feelings above whatever the issue or argument is. But I still go through like my own internal logical process of deciding to put their feelings first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I get it. You know, when people talk about extroverted feeling, I kind of like goes over my head because I don't really grasp it because I pretty much am devoid of it. But yeah, I kind of get the gist of it. So you talk mostly about the good things about INTJs. So the stimulating conversations and stuff like that. You did speak a little bit of the bad. Can you get more specific of the bad things you get from INTJs, even without avoidant personality disorder?
Yeah, it's the part about them not really, I don't think that it's not that they don't care about other people, because they do, but they can end up acting very selfishly, because they don't notice how other people feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that they don't care how other people feel if it's brought to their attention, but because they don't naturally notice or pick up on how other people are feeling, and they're not like, they don't have a tendency to try to think about it either, they can end up being quite selfish. But it's not really the same as them actually being selfish, in the sense that if it's brought to their attention that they wouldn't, or that they wouldn't try to make things fair. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a selfish in the sense of like blatantly trying to like pull one over on someone to get an unfair advantage. Not that they wouldn't if they wanted to. But like, let's say you're out with friends or something, it's not like they would try to never pay to be selfish, right? Like, that's not an INTJ thing. But I don't know, especially like experience wise too, like a lot of the times they'll only do things they want to do. Like,
Yeah.
they don't really have the thing like, okay, well, this person did something I like to do, I'll go out of my way to do something they like to do. It's sort of just like, well, if it's not something I like, I'm just not going to do it. Like, go have fun doing it by like on your own or with somebody else, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So, which can make relationships difficult, especially if you don't know that it's their personality. And like if you don't know about INTJs and that they're just like that, it's very easy to take it personally and think that they just don't care about you because most personality types that have extroverted feeling, or even just like a feeling types at all, will be aware enough, or would do those things if they cared about somebody. So in relationships, if you're not aware of what INTJs are like, it would be easy to misunderstand their behavior as just that they don't care about you as a person or about the relationship, I think.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Like INTJs, they have their NI hero, like the first stack, their first function is introverted intuition. It's all about what we want, what we personally want. And we have
Yeah.
extroverted intuition, opposing personality down in our shadow, which kind of opposes our introverted intuition. So we're kind of selfish about what we want. So I mean, like, oh, you want this, or you're kind of like, I don't care, or you're more like insecure or afraid of other people's intentions or what they want. They're very paranoid. We're very paranoid. So it's definitely something that we have to uncover. But yeah, we can be very selfish, especially with our introverted feeling. It's kind of just about how we feel and what we want, and that kind of loops.
Yeah, I think part of the paranoia with INTJs is because, well, I think it's multifaceted, but I think it's partly because things seem to just come out of nowhere for you, like other people's reactions in social situations, because you don't have that extroverted feeling where you understand how other people are feeling. So then their reactions probably don't make a lot of sense a lot of the time, and it seems like it just comes out of nowhere, which I think would produce like social anxiety itself.
You mean like we get moody? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, like I think you would accidentally offend people in relationships without knowing it, or in conversation. And then other people would react because they're upset with you. But because you didn't do it intentionally and didn't know you were doing it, their negative reaction towards you seems like it just comes out of nowhere.
Oh, kind of like they drop of a dime. Their attitude towards you changes. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. And you don't know why. So then you get all these negative responses from other people because you hurt them, right? But you didn't know you hurt them. So all of a sudden people are just mad at you or stomping off or avoiding you, and you have no clue like what you did to upset them or where it came from. And I think if you have that kind of social interaction with people like throughout your life,
Mm-hmm.
it would produce anxiety because like for me, if I do something like that and someone's upset with me, I can like look back on it and be like, oh, this is what I did and they were mad at me because of that. But if you're an INTJ, you don't really have that ability to understand like why they were feeling how they're feeling. So it would kind of seem like it came out of nowhere to
Yeah,
you.
I think you intrinsically know INTJs quite well. INTJs, kind of what you're talking about there is SI demon. It's the last function there. It's the very last. So like, kind of like one thing what we do is like we get upset. We feel like somebody wronged us. We assume that they can read our minds and they know why we're upset, and we just cut them off basically. We just kind of shut them out. That's kind of like a very bad thing. I kind of like bring back to the criteria for the avoidant personality disorders. Kind of
Yeah.
shows resistant with intimate relationships due to fears of shame or ridicule, or they just kind of like pretty much just shut people out. That's kind of like one thing that they do well. So it sounds like you definitely had a lot of bad experiences with INTJs, and definitely seen her nasty side. But again, it goes like what you're saying, that we're just really misunderstood, and often we don't understand ourselves very well. And that's kind of like my mission, is to kind of educate INTJs about themselves and other people, and kind of go beyond little cutesy MBTI vagary that it gives.
Yeah. So, and I think it probably has to do with your relation, like the stability of your family relationships growing up too, and your friendship groups.
Oh, we froze.
Because, oh, are we back?
Yeah, we froze there for a second.
Okay. I think it probably goes to actually like childhood traumas too, because with developing avoidant personality disorder, because there are some INTJs, like if an INTJ has a stable family life and friend group, that sort of understands what they're like, they're probably less likely to develop avoidant personality disorder. But if an INTJ has had like some significant relational traumas or grown up in an unstable home environment, then like that happening to any personality type can impact how they form relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've had like your closest relationships be damaging to you growing up, and that's like what you're familiar with, and then in addition to that, you have a hard time connecting with people and starting new relationships because of your personality type. I think like INTJs are very logical, and if you've had enough bad relationships and trauma within relationships, it is logical to avoid them, right? Like it just is.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yes and no.
Yeah, it kind of leaves you in this position where you have to choose between taking this great risk of starting new relationships to try to find a healthy one, or avoiding them completely and then having to deal with the loneliness of being alone and not having close relationships, which I've struggled, like I've had some bad relationships too. And as an ENTP, I've struggled with that, except for me, like my extroverted personality kind of like I'll have moments where I feel that way, but then my extroverted personality pulls me out of it. Like I'll talk to other people and I'll talk about it and then I'll feel better and stop feeling that way. But an INTJ is less likely to like go out for casual coffee and actually talk about their feelings with somebody and then feel better about it and feel hope at, oh, okay, I do have relationships in my life that aren't that bad and I can do this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like INTJs are, even if you went out for coffee with a friend, you're more likely to not talk about yourself or your feelings at all and then still feel lonely while you're with another person.
Yeah, I think because we have introverted feelings, so we definitely like to share our feelings, because oftentimes we don't understand our feelings ourselves. So it's definitely good to get in touch with it, and that's what's great about having somebody with a extroverted feeling kind of bring that out with you and kind of process that. But yeah, like you were saying back then, it's kind of like it makes sense for INTJs to avoid relationships, or people with AvPD to avoid relationships, because you know the burn that they felt before, and it's definitely trauma related. I 100% believe that. I believe no one's not susceptible to trauma, and I think each type kind of varies different ways with different like diagnoses and personality disorders, which I definitely want to go more into and study and talk to people and form my own theories in a stronger manner. But yeah, I think definitely INTJs especially are very prone to developing AvPD due to past traumas.
Yeah, because you are a logical type and you have introverted feeling, And if repeatedly like relationships are negative for you, then you learn from it, right? You learn that relationships hurt, and it also like it's human nature though to need relationships in our life. So it hurts to not have them, it hurts to have them, and then you're kind of just stuck in this situation. You probably feel pretty trapped, I guess, a lot of the time by it. I'm assuming. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of INTJs out there who think that they don't need any relationships. I think that's 100% false. I think INTJs are probably the most independent and are less reliant on relationships, but we do need at least a small handful. And I'd like to kind of explain a little bit difference between schizoid personality disorder and avoidant personality disorder. With schizoid people with schizoid personality disorder kind of don't want relationships at all and they avoid it. But avoidant personality people, like you were saying, they don't want these relationships. They pretend like they don't, but they really do. And it really hurts very deeply that they don't have these relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's tough. I think it is possible to I think it is possible to like maybe not be cured, but to heal significantly from it and be able to live your life a lot better and develop relationships. But I think a key factor in that is actually acknowledging that you have avoidant personality disorder, which I think a lot of people with avoidant personality disorder are so afraid of rejection and so self-conscious that they would never even accept the diagnosis because they're like in too fragile of an emotional state to wear that diagnosis to
They're just
begin with.
embarrassed of it. They're ashamed of it.
Yeah. And then but for someone with avoidant personality disorder to develop a healthy relationship, I think one of the most important things would be to actually be honest about it with the other person so that they can understand your behaviors in the relationship and not take things personally. And I think that there are people who are willing to do that. But it's probably pretty hard for someone with avoidant personality disorder to even like disclose that at the beginning of a relationship. And be able to, yeah, I think it would be difficult, but not impossible.
Yeah, for sure. Just lost my train of thought. Lack of a SI there.
That's okay.
So what message would you give to someone with avoidant personality disorder? What would you like advice would you give them to kind of overcome their own obstacles?
I would, yeah, I think just even admitting it first is important, and taking like whatever relationships you do have in your life, I would focus on trying to spend more time with the people who are supportive of you with it, which is hard because actually one of my ex-boyfriends with avoidant personality disorder, he spends a lot of time with a guy who's basically like a psychopath. And I think he does it on purpose because he wants to spend time with somebody and he knows that like he's never gonna have too much of an emotional attachment to this other person because it's like he already knows that they're selfish and out for themselves, but I think that having a relationship with someone like that, it's like a protection mechanism, because then if it goes wrong or if it goes bad, he could say, oh yeah, I predicted that about this person, and it's because of who they are, right? Which I've actually done a bit of that myself too, because I have some avoidant characteristics, which is why I can understand it a bit. But it does seem kind of counterintuitive to be avoidant, to spend time on relationships that are bad. But I think the whole reason behind that is so that if like you're like preemptively protecting yourself for when the relationship falls apart, and if the other person is like not that great, it's easier for you to get over it, right? Like it's less of a hurt if that relationship breaks down. Whereas if you invest into like somebody you really care about, who you know is a good person, it's a way higher risk of you getting hurt. It's like the fear of rejection at the beginning is worse, right? If it's actually someone you care about more. And then if the relationship breaks down, if you get attached to this person and the relationship breaks down, you don't know if you're actually going to be able to get over it, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of that too, like I was saying when we're having a little chit chat before the podcast started, they're really, people with avoidant personality disorders are really attracted to like people with borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, who are basically psychopaths, sociopaths. People with AvPD, they just feel so inadequate. They feel like they don't deserve good relationships or good things. So they know that these people are going to abuse them, and they feel like they deserve that because they were growing up to believe that they were so worthless that that's what they believe. And I think more specifically for an INTJ with the any nemesis, the any opposing personality nemesis, whatever you want to call it, they like are really paranoid of other people's intentions and like what they want. So it kind of is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, okay, I found this person who's going to treat me bad because I think everybody's going to treat me bad. And okay, so
and
this
then
is real
they learn
reality.
that, oh, people treat me badly in relationships, and it's like a cycle. Yeah, so I would say focus on, like, instead of trying to jump into a romantic relationship immediately, well, like if it happens, right? But I would say, like, if you're going to be intentional about something, focus on like developing friendships with good people who are actually treat you well and are supportive. Um and just small things like going for coffee sometimes, or just like making a point in your life to actually spend time with people who care about you and treat you well, right? And like more than one person, like a few people, maybe like pick people in your life, or try to get to know people who are actually going to be kind and supportive, and who you can even be honest with about what you're struggling with, right? And I know INTJs aren't super into talking about your feelings, but you could just like at least mention like, oh, I have this personality disorder, this is what I'm struggling with, and then see what their reaction is like. And if they're not nice or supportive, like if they make some sort of sarcastic comment about it, it's probably the type of person that you have chose to hang out with, but it's probably not the type of person you should be spending time with to develop healthy relationships. Because that is self-fulfilling, and it's continuing the negative cycle where you have negative relationships and you seek negative relationships, and then you feel like relationships are hurtful, because they are, because you're choosing relationships with hurtful people, right? And INTJs are very logical, so I think that's one thing you can do is actually like logic your way into it. Like, the way people treat you is because of who they are, not because of who you are, right? And if someone treats you badly, it's not because you're a bad person, it's because they're someone that treats people badly, right?
Yeah. So I think
And then
like it goes back to they feel so inadequate that they don't deserve somebody who's nice and kind to them, and they just feel like they're just going to get betrayed anyways, because pretty much everybody's betrayed an INTJ to an extent, probably growing up, because they didn't really understand them, they understand themselves. So I
yeah,
definitely think of, be more receptive of people who are kind, and not everybody's out to get you. Just, have that mindset. And absolutely, like, INTJs like to research. I don't know about other types of people with avoidant personality disorder. I know it took me 30 something years to discover what AvPD was, and it made a lot of sense when I finally did it. I think I just searched psychology a very long time until I found something that fit, and jumped from like self-diagnosis to self-diagnosis, and it was quite unhelpful. But be open to getting the help. There's people out there who want to help you. Like, I want to help you, and I want to talk to you. It doesn't have to be this grandiose on a podcast. It could be email, it could be Reddit, it could be whatever. Just let me kind of find the way you tick, and let me study you, and let me try to find it. Because one barrier to treating avoidant personality disorder is nobody wants to be treated for it because they're too afraid, they're too ashamed.
yeah,
So let us help, help us help you, basically.
yeah, and just like, there are good people out there who will treat you nicely in a relationship because of who they are, because they treat people well. And yeah, I think being honest about your personality disorder is important too. And you might get negative reactions from some people, but then that that's not like a safe person, right? Like, that rejection might hurt, it might be hard to put it out there, but that's actually one way that it's a pretty easy way to be able to tell if it's a person that's you can have a good relationship with, right? Because somebody who's capable of having a good relationship, I would just say, like, to anyone with avoidant personality disorder out there, um it doesn't mean that you're not worthy of being in a good relationship, and it doesn't mean that there aren't good people out there who are interested in having a relationship with you. And INTJs especially, like, have very unique talents to offer relationships and the world in general. And your worth as a person and your worth in relationships, um, it's not defined by your weaknesses, right? So just because you have weaknesses in some areas in relationships, and in your ability to judge what other people are feeling, it doesn't mean that you're not a person of worth and of value. And it doesn't mean that good people aren't going to want to be and have relationships with you. So try not in a loop of believing that you're worthless and nobody will want to be in a relationship with you just because you have some flaws, because we all do.
For sure. Well, I think that about does it. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming up on here. I think you did an excellent job. Please, if you like this, if this resonated with you, I hope to put it on YouTube and find a podcasting platform. So please like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. I'll put my website down in the description. It's www.intjequation.com. Thank you for going beyond the clickbait, and have a great night.